It was a little after 2 a.m. when we were rushed down the long Amtrak train. We had to be as quickly and quietly as possible. It had dropped us off in the middle of the country, somewhere in the middle of Kansas. Next to me was my niece, my grandma, and my mother. My mother is one of the most resilient women I've ever met. She has a great sense of style, and she always wore a little bit too much of Elizabeth Taylor's White Diamond. Along with her strong aroma is her strong will. My mom gave the warmest hugs and the most reassuring winks, and I always felt safe by her side. She was born in Mexico, and she moved to California, where she would create her nest to raise 5 children on her own. I grew up in Pasadena. That's my hometown. On the corner of my block, there's a little carniceria, a little butcher shop. And we had shopped there for as long as I can think back. The spoken language there was Spanish. That's where I would go to buy my sweet bread and spicy candy. That is the community I grew up in. The doors of the train shut behind us, and I stood there clutching my suitcase, which contained my stuffed monkey Bobby that I'd carefully picked to get me through the next 2 weeks in our vacation in the land of Oz. My mother's brother picked us up. Him and his wife had moved to Kansas 6 years prior from Pasadena. We stayed to visit with them and my cousins. And a few days into our vacation, I overhear a conversation between my mother and my uncle, and he says to her, "Michelle's the last one at home. Just come to Kansas, stay here. There's no need to go back. You can just start fresh and new, and life will be better for you." And after a little back and forth between them, my mom eventually humored him and said, "If you can find me a job here within the next 2 weeks, then I'll stay." And I stood there praying that that wasn't true. Well, the time was up, and my uncle did just that. The 2 weeks were past, and it meant that we were staying in Wichita, Kansas. I had begged my mother to let me go with my grandmother and my niece. "Mom, please let me go. You can't send her on the train by herself. I need to be there to translate with her." She didn't buy into that one. Did I mention that I come from a line of strong, independent women? Soon I was enrolled at a middle school in Wichita, Kansas called Truesdale Middle School. I don't know how much you remember about middle school, but it was really tough and really awkward. During that time, I was feeling really chubby, my face was looking textured, and the urge to cry took a permanent residence in my body. Let's just add a new school to a mix. A new school where I don't know a single soul, and none of the teachers would greet me with, "Oh my, you must be Paul's little sister." On the first day of school, I was surrounded by four students. They were all looking at me kind of funny, until finally a tall blonde boy broke the silent gaze. "What are you?" I grew up used to watching people dissect my face. "Are you Asian?" "You must be Native American. Your hair and cheekbones are a dead giveaway." "What are you?" I thought to myself, is saying yes to any of these questions going to change the way they think of me? "Oh, we're not in Pasadena anymore, Toto. I learned that people in Kansas wave to each other even if they don't know you. The people there eat biscuits and gravy together." And I learned that there are a lot of words in the English language used to describe outer layers depending on their different features. You've got your zip-up sweater and then your pullover hoodie. So many words describe the slightest differences that I never even noticed. I'm getting ready for a night out when I ask my friend to please pass me my jacket, and she says, "You mean parka?" It wasn't long until someone corrected me when I called myself Mexican. My mother and father are both from Guadalajara, Jalisco. So when some other 8th graders began asking me, "What are you?" I responded the way I usually did. "I'm Mexican." Well, one of my new classmates decided to do her own private investigation, and she asked me, "So were you born in Mexico?" "No, I was born in California." "So technically that makes you a Mexican American. Since you were not born in Mexico, you shouldn't call yourself Mexican." New state, new school, new identity? I can handle this. So what am I? The feeling of sticking out and not belonging always lingered when I lived in Kansas. My mom was driving us down the freeway when I asked her, "How do you say bookshelf in Spanish?" I watched her wiggle her eyebrows, and I can tell she was feeling a little frustrated with herself. "I can't think of it now, but it will come to me later." And she kept thinking. And then later she went on saying, "It's odd feeling like you don't have a place to call home." I didn't quite understand her. She described the feeling of leaving her hometown and adjusting to a new culture. The feeling of not fully belonging in one place. I turned up the radio to drown out her voice. I didn't really understand her, but her words, were still playing in my head. We sat in silence at the moment. I needed to find a good answer for this frequently asked question because a Mexican American girl from California but now living in Kansas was becoming a lot for me to explain every time. So as my mother and I rode in silence the rest of the way, I heard something on the radio. It was the solution I've been waiting for. It was an ad for one of those DNA tests. That same day, I went home and asked my family if I can get one for Christmas. My sister ended up surprising me with one, and the instructions were to collect a nice little wad of spit and mail it back. So I did just that. And after a few months of impatiently waiting for my results, they finally arrived. I opened an email with the link that I simply needed to click in order to unlock one of my greatest mysteries. After creating an account, I was able to access my results. I nervously clicked and waited for the page to load. The results that I got said that my ancestry was traced back to Mexico. "I'm not really sure what else you were expecting," my sister said to me. And I just stood there. Regardless of my location or whether I'm wearing a parka or a jacket, all of those feelings and experiences that truly make me who I am will always be in the inside. That is the greatest thing I learned from hopping on a train and taking a 2-week vacation to Kansas that turned into 9 years of residency.